true self means, sounds like, and looks like. Welcome to the very first episode of Brave Steps Forward. I'm your host, Carlin E. Tapia, coach, speaker, educator, and certified practitioner. I'll put more info of my work and what I do in the show notes. Feel free to contact us. My team would love to schedule a guest on my podcast. I have exciting plans for this, and I am ready to serve you. This podcast is designed to help you break free from fear or toxic stress and grow into the most confident, empowered version of yourself. If you're feeling stuck, uncertain, or overwhelmed, you've come to the right place. Hey, Sarita, did I say your name right?
Yeah, Sarita. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. I am so happy to get you on. I know we've rescheduled quite a bit, so
Yeah.
so happy
Yeah,
to
we
have
have. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So I just want my audience to know more about the inner work, just the nuances, because I know since we've talked before and you've been very just clear and articulate in what you've been through and kind of like walking me through things that maybe people don't get to share a lot. And so I just want to put like a name and a voice just so that people, if they identify with it, they could reach out to you, to me, and we can get them started on their healing journey.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean you just want to know a little more in terms of what I have done for with my own inner work? Or is that kind of
Yeah, I want a
okay?
little bit of context of like, okay, this is what I've been through, and then if you're willing to share some nuances that maybe you haven't shared before, so that, yeah, because I mean, we know that this sounds horrible, but we know, okay, there's abuse, there's trauma around it. And so I don't want to keep saying the same thing
Mhm.
because people are just like normalizing it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, I'll just kind of talk, and as you have questions, just stop me, pause me. Um, so I guess to give a little context, I was adopted at 15 months old. And it was an international adoption. So I came here from India and was adopted into an all white family. And I didn't realize back then, obviously, when I was a child, how much that would impact me. But it did. And I'm really starting to uncover a lot of those layers now as an adult and just realizing there's so many things that I've been realizing. Yeah. And so, all that to say, I pretty much started life off from essentially day one with an abandonment wound. And so there was that rupture there from when I was a baby being removed from my mother. I'm not really sure how or what happened, but just having that first rupture of like, it's not supposed to be this way. You're supposed to be, an infant is supposed to stay with their mom. And that didn't happen. And so that kind of set me up for the trajectory, I guess, of my life, where I was honestly, from a young age, I always was just very, very anxious and I really, really struggled with like relationships ending, friendships ending, um, things like that. They always were very hard for me. And so, to take that into like teenage years and into adulthood, the way that that played out in my life was getting into relationships with men that were super abusive because it was like that was home, and that was what was like safe to my nervous system. And it's really all I knew. And so I didn't know any better at that time to look that really wasn't safe and that really shouldn't have been home. And so honestly, the way that I see it now is that from the moment that I was removed from my mom, that really is what set the stage for kind of what became my life, where it was just a lifetime of a lot of really deep internal struggle. But it was always around that core wound, that first wound of not being with her. And so it just played out in just a lot of not even just abusive relationships, but I mean, even in friendships, I had so many friendships that were really, really toxic or abusive. And I didn't realize it, back then it was like this was normal. Like I said, this was what I just thought like just was like this. I don't know anything else. So that honestly, that's what my life had been up until several years ago. So it was just a lifetime of a lot of trauma, and I was living out my trauma in many ways, and I didn't know any better at the time.
Thank you for sharing. When, or what was the catalyst that you started realizing, oh my goodness, this is not what I want for my life?
Honestly, I think one of the biggest catalysts was so I was divorced twice. And so the first time, my first husband was a lot more overtly abusive, a lot more out there about it, just plain as day. Um, but my second husband was a lot more covert. And so the abuse was very subtle and it wasn't seen to like the natural eye. But if you were someone that understood abuse, you'd see it clear as day. And so I think the catalyst for me was when I finally left that marriage and just realized those marriages were abusive. Yes, those things that happened shouldn't have happened. And like, I didn't deserve any of that, obviously. And at the same time, I really need to look inward here and figure out like what is going on inside of me that keeps drawing me to these kinds of people because there's something, there's a reason that I keep being drawn to emotionally unavailable men. And so for me, it was like, I don't want to continue this cycle. I don't want to keep, like I'm just going to keep picking up the same kinds of guys if I don't figure out what it was that drew me to them in the first place. And so that was really the catalyst for me. It was going through the second divorce and just realizing I could have really avoided a lot and avoided an entire second marriage, had I, been able to look inward before after my first marriage and been able to really realize, okay, like I've got a lot of stuff to heal and no abuse is never your fault. And it's still worth looking into what your conditioning is and the ways that you've been groomed as a child, even to accept that kind of treatment from people. And so that was really the catalyst for me, was just not wanting to repeat the same cycle over and over and over.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm so proud of you for doing that inner work. And how, if you can walk me a little bit with your spouse now, like how did you figure out you did this inner work, and how did you, because honestly, I'm scared of that for myself. And with my previous relationship, like we were not married, I wanted to rush into things a little bit because the whole Christianity thing where like, oh, like you need to be married before you have sex. And so I was just trying to like follow the rules and things like that. But I ended up breaking up with him because he didn't align with my values. He didn't want children. I want children. And so I'm like, if you were advising me, what does it look like to feel comfortable with a new version that you sought for?
Honestly, it's very uncomfortable at first. When I first, so our story is very unique. I first started dating him after my first husband. And so that is a whole story for another day. But he, it was very different. It didn't feel the same. It was actually really uncomfortable for me because his arms felt very safe, but the safety that I felt was it was whole new territory for me. It was very uncomfortable, super unusual, and I found myself fighting against it a lot and like really struggling to accept it. I really struggled back then, especially to just accept his unconditional love, um, and his safety for me because it was just so like it was foreign to me. And so, I mean, it felt really good, I will say, but like there was definitely a sense of this this is very different, this is very weird and very different.
Can you
And
give me an
so,
example?
yeah, so he honestly, one of the best examples is like my nervous system naturally just kind of melts in his presence. Whereas like with my exes, it was a lot more I was always like just very like in survival state. You could feel it. I could feel like the urgency in my body of like, oh my gosh, like I need to be with this person or, like just I need to be close or I need to whatever. And it was always very anxiously driven. And with my husband now, when he hugs me, I just soften. I'm able to really soften in his presence. And it really brings my nervous system back into like that homeostasis place. Another example would be like he doesn't ever shame me for anything. Nothing. Like I still to this day there's things that come up and I'll tell him something and I'm always like nervous to tell him or something like that and he's like, "Okay." Like, "Okay. Okay, honey. Why are you ashamed of that? Like, you don't need to be ashamed of that." Like he's just very gentle with me and very understanding and gentle with the things I've been through. Um, I mean, he's watched a lot of it happen, honestly, because like I said, we met after my first husband, and then we had a child together. And so like he has watched a lot of things transpire for me over time. And so he is just very gentle and he does not ever shame me ever like that. And that's something that I wish I would have realized sooner because with my second husband, he was very shaming. Like everything, my past was a huge point of contention for us from when I was a teenager. This is
Mm.
like as a teenage girl, the decisions I made as a teenager, he would bring up a lot. And it was always a point of really deep shame. And he would always say it in ways that were really, I can't believe like how awful you were. And like, just really looking down on me. And so shame is kind of something I carried for a long time. And I still struggle with it to this day. I've gotten a lot better, but I still, like I said, when things come up with my husband now, that shame sometimes still drives the bus. And
Yeah.
I come to him like, I have to tell you something and I don't want to tell you. And it's not ever even something really that bad. But because of those past experiences in previous relationships where like I would have been horribly shamed and abused for, kind of bring that, or I used to bring that with me a lot. And so just his patience with me has been really, really pivotal for my own healing.
I'm so grateful that that he did choose to be gentle, and it's just who he is, and that you have him. So
Mhm.
I'm super thankful. Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to fast forward to having a baby. I've heard that it could be a little bit traumatic to birth a baby when you've had physical abuse before. Is
I don't know that it was linked at all to physical abuse for me. Um, I wouldn't say that. I would actually say it was really healing.
okay.
My first childbirth was pretty traumatic, but that was the circumstances around it and the people that were caring for me at the time were just they should not have been. And so the first birth overall was just really traumatic, but the rest of the births, I had home births for the rest of the kids. So the last 5 were all born at home. And yeah, I would say that almost all of those births were very, very healing for me and very empowering, extremely empowering.
Wow.
Yeah.
At birth, I've wanted to do that, and I just really want to do my research because I've heard, like you hear with anything that things go wrong. But has it all been successful? Has it all been, who's your midwife? Tell me the details.
Yeah, so my midwife, her name is Brenda Burke. She's with Willow River Midwifery, and she's in like northern Iowa, and then she serves like southeast Minnesota as well. But she has been in practice for sure over 30 years. I don't even know how long at this point, probably 40, honestly. She has been doing this for a very long time. And so knowing that she held as much experience and expertise as she did, I felt a lot more comfortable because I was able to sit down with her before making the decision. that I was going to have her as my midwife and ask her a million questions, all the questions of like, if this goes wrong, what do you do? And if this goes wrong, what do you do? And just really being able to pretty much interview her, and she was really honest with me. And I will say, she is far more skilled than any OBGYN that I've ever met. Like, I would feel way more safe in her care than I ever have with an OBGYN because they're surgeons. And that is what they're trained to do. They are trained to perform surgery. I don't know if you've ever heard of The Business of Being Born, but that documentary really sheds a lot of light on like kind of the business behind hospital births and then the benefits really of home birth. And they were interviewing different OBGYNs throughout that documentary. And some of them said, some of them had been in practice for 20 plus years. And they had said, we've only seen one or two natural births. And my jaw just dropped. I just was like, you have been doing this for as long as you have, and you've only seen that many natural births. Like, that is really alarming to me. Brenda, and I'm hoping all at-home midwives are, but most at-home midwives are highly trained. I mean, they have to go through rigorous schooling, and not only schooling, but then they have to shadow and intern and work under other midwives. And like, it is a very lengthy process. It's not just, like, go get your license and then go do it. Like, they have a lot of work that they have to do before they can go out on their own. But the way she describes it is like, if there is a potential emergency or a potential, like, we might be running into a situation where we need to transfer to a hospital. She calls it like her box. And so what she says is when you start getting toward that line of the box, that is when I will talk to you and say, hey, we're getting kind of close to this. Like, I just want you to know that. And then she'll kind of give you the decision, like, do you want to transfer right now? Or do you want to keep trying? And then there is a certain point where if you hit the line, she makes the call. She says, nope, we're transferring. You know, it is what it is. Like, I'll still be there with you, but we're transferring. And so very, very tuned to you throughout the whole process. And I mean, that woman is very trained in being able to tell when something is wrong way before it becomes an emergency. Whereas, like in the hospital setting, they start seeing that something might be wrong. A lot of the time it's really not, but a lot of, something's wrong. And so then it's immediate, like, we need to get you in for a C-section right now. It's just instant. Like, they don't do anything else to try to fix it outside of a C-section. Everything is just, nope, like because you're on their time frame. That's what it comes down to. You're on their time frame. They want to get you in and out. They've got beds to fill. They've got people waiting. The OBGYN wants to be done with their shift. Like, there's just so many different things that play into it, where when you have a home birth midwife, they are totally on your timing.
Oh my God.
They are not like, all right, like, come on, I'm trying to clock out here,
Yeah.
So it's very different.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I know that we jumped from one thing to another, but
Yeah.
I around one, my brain is wired that way. And
Mhm.
then second, it just gives a lot of information and a lot of light to like the lifespan of someone that has been through a lot of abuse and who is healing, has healed the abandonment wound, what that looks like throughout. And so, I mean, right now I can see that you have to your wound, and then you have worked diligently to prevent that from happening with your babies. And so that's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're a breaker. Yeah, I'm looking for more people like you that haven't but done the work,
Right.
so that I can, further assist and enlighten them to what this could, like people, someone like you or me, you know.
Mhm.
So thank
Mhm.
you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else that comes to your heart, your mind about sharing with my audience as far as taking brave steps forward?
Honestly, my biggest thing, so I'm heading into relational coaching. And that's really, really, really like the attachment system and our attachment woundings. And so, and not that, but also our nervous system, like bringing the two together. And so, what I would say to anyone listening is if you have not heard of attachment styles or you haven't done any work around your attachment, I would say start, because our attachment affects everything in our lives. Everything. There's some experts that like to say, no, it only affects our personal relationships. But I strongly disagree. I've seen it affect everything. It can affect your business, your work. It can affect, your intimate relationships, your friendships, your relationships with your kids. I mean, anything that we can have a relationship to, our attachment system can really be affected. And so I would say heal your attachment wounding, because when you can do that, then you can really, really move forward in life and in your healing. I mean, being able to focus on my attachment wounding was what really, just really forward, I guess, a lot faster for me. I had been in and out of therapy for years, and no one ever said anything about attachment. And then when I
Wow.
finally realized, like, wow, I have, just some severe attachment wounding, like severe, and then was able to name that and able to really like focus on that then and focus on that wounding, that's when things really changed for me. And when I was really able to do some deep healing, and around like the nervous system. So being able to not only learn about the nervous system, but then figure out, what does safe feel like in my body? And what does being regulated feel like in my body? And then how do I know when I'm starting to get out of my window of tolerance? And like, what are my, kind of warning signs? What are my indicators of that? And being able to really learn how to be in your body is absolute key for healing and growth. Attachment wounding and learning how to be in your body and how to listen to your body, they are so important, because honestly, I could have saved myself from a lot of pain and a lot of things had I known how to listen to my body back then. Had I known how to listen to like when my stomach would contract and say like, nope, this is an absolute no. There's something wrong here. But I didn't know how to listen to it. And so I would just get a stomach ache and just call it a stomach ache, And I had
Yeah.
no context for why that could be happening. So, yeah, really just want to encourage everyone listening. Focus on your nervous system, find someone that is trained in somatic experiencing, and get someone trained in somatic experiencing and that really knows the nervous system and that really knows attachment. That is like, you will be well on your way if you can
Yeah.
find someone like that.
Thank you for saying that, because sometimes I don't know how to explain I say it so much and it sounds sometimes woo woo, but like tune into your body. Like okay, you don't know, well let's explore together. And it's really healing when people I call it like reattach or connect back. And so I love that. I think I never get old for me, because I've experienced tremendous self-awareness with those skills and techniques. Like I've been able to create my beautiful life because I've learned to tune in and to stand up for what, like, first is like learning how to do that. Then it's like being able to do something about it, because in the beginning you get scared of like, oh my gosh, I didn't like this. Now I have to speak up. Now I have to, now I want to advocate for myself. So it's definitely a beautiful process.
Yeah, it is for sure. And it's well worth it to do. It's
Yeah.
very worth it to do. Oh, there's a lot of people in this world that are not willing to do it and not
Hmm.
willing to do that work of facing themselves, but it's so worth it. It's not easy. I'm never going to sugarcoat it. It's not easy, but man, it's worth it.
And I mean, there are people who have a secure attachment who like, I just observe a lot of them, and I'm like, it's so easy for them. So we can do it. We can make it into a natural thing for us. It just takes practice.
Well, and we're all born with secure attachment. And so knowing that we are all born with it, we're also all capable of returning to that secure attachment through healing and through really focusing in on those core abandonment wounds. You can get back to secure attachment because it's always inside of you. It's never not there. You just
Yeah.
got to figure out how to access it.
Yeah. And how to live it out.
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, thank you again so much for coming on, for giving us your experience, your knowledge, your presence, your wisdom. And
That's it. That's a wrap, you guys. Thank you so much for being here today and for giving me the privilege to speak over your life and for you receiving the gift of growth. Remember, every step you take forward, no matter how small or big, you are truly moving forward to who you're truly meant to be. Embrace the journey because the process of becoming is just as powerful as the destination. And in today's episode, if something sparked in you, a question, anything, a goal, an idea, hold on to that. Let it be the nudge you need to take brave steps forward toward the life that's calling. You don't have to have it all figured out to start. You just need to take that next step. And I'll be here cheering you on every step of the way. Until next time, keep going. Hey, and do me a favor, share this episode with one friend or on social media. Let's bring more awareness to taking brave steps forward together. And that's it. That's a wrap, you guys. Thank you so much for being here today and for giving me the privilege to speak over your life and for you receiving the gift of growth. Remember, every step you take forward, no matter how small or big, you are truly moving forward to who you're truly meant to be. Embrace the journey because the process of becoming is just as powerful as the destination. And in today's episode, if something sparked in you, a question, anything, a goal, an idea, hold on to that. Let it be the nudge you need to take brave steps forward toward the life that's calling. You don't have to have it all figured out to start. You just need to take that next step. And I'll be here cheering you on every step of the way. Until next time, keep going. Hey, and do me a favor, share this episode with one friend or on social media. Let's bring more awareness to taking brave steps forward together.